Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source Podcast. I'm your host, Jace. Another Spawn Daily episode here. Just a reminder what we're doing real quick, because I don't do this on every episode, but maybe every episode has opportunity to be the chance for somebody to be joining us for the first time. So back in 2022, to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Spawn, I decided I wanted to read all of the original Spawn series because I never had done it. And that was in hopes of getting caught up to be able to read King Spawn and Scorched and Gunslinger Spawn and all that. Because I had read the first few issues of those, and while they were good, I was missing a lot of context and what have you. So started down the path, and I wasn't too far into it before I realized that a lot of the other mini-series and one-shots and tangential series, related series like Sam and Twitch and Curse of the Spawn and what have you, really informed what was happening in the main series. So once I hit issue 50, I went back and backfilled. I found a great reading order from a guy named Blake Whitlow. There's a link in the show notes. You can go and check it out, see where we're going, see where we've been. But it mixes in all those other tangential Spawn issues from miniseries and one-shots and other series, and really gives a full-bodied experience for Spawn. Now, I had a couple of co-hosts. One co-host when we started, he had to drop out, couldn't keep up with the daily grind. Had a second co-host. He had to drop out. Unfortunately, some life stuff happened. And then I fell off because I didn't want to do it by myself. So I really wish I hadn't stopped, because I've rededicated myself to doing it, even though I searched for a co-host starting halfway through last year, asking a bunch of people, and nobody was willing to commit to doing it daily. So, and I get it. It's a big commitment. So that's what we're doing here. We're hoping to read all of Spawn, all of the related Spawn material, get caught up, because now not only do we have King Spawn and Scorched and Gunslinger Spawn, we have a second Gunslinger Spawn coming out. We have Rat City. We have Spawn Monolith. We have Spawn Dark Ages. Just a lot of Spawn content that's coming out in 2024. So what better time to get caught up on Spawn? So I've really been enjoying reading it. Originally, when Spawn came out, I think I only read up to like issue 25. And so I'm now, reading stuff that I've never had a chance to read before, and again, to experience it for the first time, hopefully along with some of you who are joining me. So again, that's what we're doing. So let me go ahead and share my screen for the latest issue. As I said, issue number 84. You guys should be able to see it now if you're checking me out on YouTube. Really cool looking cover from Capullo. Recently his covers, I know it's a little bit of a nitpick for some people that when the covers don't have much to do with what's going on inside. And that's sort of been the case recently with these issues of Spawn. This is kind of right around the time that the sort of pinup style cover really started to take over. But at least there are iconic images of Spawn, and it does have the pentagram in the background. And really, this is a story of possession, right? And we talk about Billy Kincaid and the fact that he is taking over innocent people's bodies and getting them to do unspeakable things. So it sort of makes sense. It ties in a little bit. So anyway, we have The Waiting is the next, or is the current issue that we're going to talk about. And it's interesting. This issue, it's really fast paced, and a lot happens in terms of some character work and setup, but it is Spawn waiting, Sam and Twitch waiting, Cogliostro to some extent waiting, waiting for plans they've set in motion. So you see what I'm talking about in just a couple minutes here, but really appropriate title. I really like it. So plot by Todd McFarlane and Brian Holguin. Holguin gets credit for the story. Pencils by Greg Capullo. Inks by Danny Miki. Copy editor and lettering by Tom Orzechowski. Colors by Dan Kemp, Brian Haberlin, and Dave Kemp. And of course, you have the synopsis of issue 83 there to remind everybody what happened last issue. So to kick it off, we see Cyan sleeping the sleep of the innocent, dreaming of unicorns and butterflies and all those sweet things that little girls dream of, when we see Billy Kincaid. There's his voice, there's his distinct looking dialogue. Obviously it's erased on your screen, but you get some sense that it's not just the regular white word balloons. And we see Billy there taking her out of her bed. We know that he threatened the family um, was outside Granny Blake's house, a few issues ago or what have you. And we know that he wants revenge on those that have wronged him. That includes Spawn and the people that Spawn cares about, which obviously includes Terry and Wanda and Cyan. Um, so yeah, he's taking her. He says that he's going to get her to do, horrible things. Says you're one of us now. We can see the chains. We can see um, the green glowing eyes of all the souls that he's taken and corrupted over the last few issues. And as we turn the page, thank God, it's just a dream, or maybe I should say a nightmare for Spawn, who wakes up screaming. This is like literally his worst nightmare. The daughter that could have been his, um, becoming a puppet of Billy Kincaid and doing, horrible things, and having her soul condemned to hell and then her soul bound to Billy Kincaid for all time. Like, yeah, what an awful fate to befall anybody, let alone Cyan, this innocent girl that Spawn sees as sort of a surrogate daughter. Meanwhile, Twitch is looking on his own wife and thinking about his own kids and thinking about just what a predicament that they're in. He's always thought of himself as very logical, and really this whole arc has really been fleshing out Twitch as a character. Um, and he's thinking about how much he loves his wife, how his wife and his kids are his whole world, and somehow he keeps letting her down. He feels like he keeps failing by not stopping the serial killer, by not providing a better life for them and what have you. Um, and he's just not sure what to do. He can't really, as much as he loves her and as much as he confides in her, he can't really confide in her about this because, first of all, she probably wouldn't believe him. And uh, and number two, she's so good and kind-hearted. She sort of can't conceive of the evil. He makes a comment. Twitch makes a comment as he's thinking to himself that she's such a good person that she doesn't believe the world could be as wicked as it actually is. So he sneaks out to the office in the middle of the night, and she's going to wake up in a couple hours and be really pissed off that he's gone. But she just doesn't know what's at stake, and Twitch just wouldn't forgive himself if he didn't do everything he could, everything in his power to stop Billy Kincaid. So he's trying to figure out what to do. He's racking his brain. He's going through the files and, thinking about how Billy's really toying with them and, what his next move might be when Spawn shows up behind him, much like Spawn showed up in the back of Sam and Twitch's car last issue. Kind of like a Batman-like maneuver. And it's funny, right? Without even turning around, as Spawn sort of sneaks up behind Twitch, Twitch knows he's there and says, "Well, Spawn, how long are you planning on standing there before you're actually gonna say something?" So it's funny, right? We know there's a connection between Spawn and Twitch now that Spawn saved his life, shared a little bit of his necroplasmic energy with Twitch to heal him from the bullet that he took to the head. So it's probably why Twitch knows he's there, even as Spawn is trying to sneak up on him. So meanwhile, Rat City, we see Jason Wynn, who he ran into Bobby, of all people, when he was disoriented, when he woke up after being mugged and attacked, and had lost his memory, didn't necessarily know who he was. And so, he wakes up in this alley. Things are starting to come back to him. Bobby shows up with a box of donuts from the donut place, down the street, 2-day-old donuts or whatever. And Wynn doesn't want anything to do with Bobby. He's like, "Get away from me, you cretin." Again, his memory starting to come back, and not just his memory of being beaten and mugged, but his memory of what happened before that. And we also get an idea of how he was able um, to survive his encounter with Billy Kincaid when so many others didn't, right? We're told it was his legendary strong will that allowed him to break free of Billy's control. So Billy wasn't able to have Wynn, maybe he was going to die in the explosion. Maybe he was going to kill himself. Maybe he was going to go suicide by cop. We just don't know. But what we do know is Wynn couldn't free himself before the damage was done in terms of Wynn going crazy in the diner and killing everybody, but he was able to break free and keep himself from dying. We do know that Wynn's soul probably not going to heaven, would have gone to hell, but would have been bound to Billy Kincaid forever, and would have added to Kincaid's power. So now that Wynn has this memory, he doesn't have his wallet, he doesn't have his phone, he needs extraction, he goes to a payphone, dials some secret number or whatever, government spy stuff, and says, hey, I no need to explain, log story, I need an extraction. And it's clear that everybody at wherever he's calling, wherever the call center is, has been instructed, hey, if Wynn calls in, patch him through to the boss, which apparently is some guy named Stormer. And Wynn, that's the last person Wynn wants to talk to, right? He's like, I don't want to talk to that sanctimonious old, but it's too late. He's already been patched in, and it's clear that there's history between Wynn and Stormer, and not in a good way. So Stormer's asking Wynn where he is. Well, first he says, you had a really busy night. So right away it puts it puts Wynn on the defensive, right? Like he's thinking to himself, what does Stormer know? And so when Stormer asks him where he is, Wynn lies. He doesn't tell the truth. He says, hey, I'm at Coney Island. And Stormer's like, oh, great. We'll come and pick you up. And, I'm sure you have a good explanation, blah, blah, blah. But Wynn lied, and Stormer knew he was going to lie. And he had the call traced, and they know where he is. And so I guess whatever forces Stormer controls are going to be closing in on Wynn very shortly. And we see in the final panel of that page that he's got a little bit of a grin on his face. So again, some kind of history there. Clear that Stormer is in a lot of ways an enemy of Wynn. So does that mean the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and Stormer might team up with Spawn later? Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, back at the office of Sam and Twitch, Spawn has finished filling in Twitch on the conversation that he had with Cagliostro, a conversation we're not privy to. But he said, yeah, I talked it over with Cagliostro, and this is what we came up with. And Twitch agrees, but reluctantly. He's like, are you sure you want to go through with this? And Spawn says, what do you think we have any other choice? Like, we have to stop Kincaid. And Twitch acknowledges, yeah, I guess we don't. I understand. But I don't really understand what you are. You're talking about this plan and what you're going to do. And are you flesh and blood? Are you something else? Are you a spirit? And Spawn's like, well, what's with the 20 questions? And, we know Twitch is just by nature very curious and likes answers, doesn't like questions. And he said, no, I'm just curious. Do you eat? Do you sleep? And Spawn says, I don't need to, but sometimes I do, out of habit, but less and less so lately. And it's interesting, Twitch, he says, I think you should do those things more often. I'm not exactly an expert on existential protocols or what have you. But it's always seemed to me like it's the little things that make us human, right? Which is pretty interesting. So again, these guys are sort of have this bond now, which is interesting to me. It's a very different dynamic between Twitch and Spawn versus Twitch and Sam. And so as they're standing there, Twitch says, well, actually, first Spawn says, what gives you the impression that I'm human? And Twitch says, well, you might not be psychologically, but essentially, I mean, you were a man at some point. So what's the point of living? What's the point of the struggle of life if you're, not going to make any attempt to sort of try to be human? And Spawn doesn't reply. And Twitch is clearly waiting for an answer. He's like, Spawn. And Spawn says, oh, point well taken. He's clearly considered this, right? And so then Twitch says, well, you know what? Sam's probably going to kill me because these are the last two. But, when was the last time you enjoyed a beer with a friend? And interesting, right? Like Twitch has gone from hunting Spawn and believing him to be some evil demon kind of creature to actually referring to him as a friend here. And so he gives Spawn a beer, and Spawn is kind of reminiscing, hey, this reminds me of ball games and 4th of July's and that sort of thing. And Twitch says, see, that's what I mean. It's the little things that count. Besides, we should enjoy this because if your plan doesn't work, this could be the last beer, either one of us ever drink. So meanwhile, you might be wondering where Sam is. He's hanging out on a street corner. Apparently, Detective Silbert has asked to meet him, not at Sam's office, not at the police department. And while he's standing there, this kid comes up and tries to sell uh, Sam a fake Rolex, and he explains to him how Rolex watches don't tick, and so this must be a fake. And the kid's like, well, "Where did you learn that?" And he's like, "Yeah, well, they teach it to us at cop school." And the kid goes running off just as Silbert shows up, and it's not exactly a civil meeting between the two. Silbert's been doing some digging. He's a good detective in his own right. He noticed at the crime scene where the doctor Sarah Frost had killed herself, that Sam rather knew to look for the mark behind her ear, the mark that we know is left behind when Billy Kincaid um, has controlled somebody's body and caused them to do despicable things, and that means their soul is going to hell. And he's like, "How did you know to look for that?" Number one, and number two, that mark is showing up on all these other bodies, so you know something. You're holding out on me, and you need to come clean. And Sam pleads ignorance, right? He's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Um, I, don't, I have no idea. I don't know what it means." And Silbert's like, "Hey, we go back a long way, but don't make me haul you in because I will." Silbert, again, he's feeling the pressure also to solve these crimes. So meanwhile, back at Twitch's house, he's sending his wife and kids away as much as he doesn't want to. He knows how dangerous it is with Billy Kincaid threatening them. And he just wants them to be safe. Obviously, this plan that Spawn came up with, and along with Cagliostro, whatever it is, it's dangerous. And Twitch just wants his family to be safe. But his wife loves him and doesn't want to, quote unquote, leave or desert him or what have you. She wants to know, especially not without a reason. But Twitch won't tell her. He's like, "I wish I could tell you, but I can't. It's too dangerous." And she goes, "Will you rather risk losing me? You want to lose your family? You want us to leave? Keeping secrets is dangerous. I'm your wife. You should be telling me." And Twitch says, I understand that if there was any other way, but I just can't risk it. You mean too much to me." And her response to that is, "But you are pushing me away without the least bit of explanation. That's the risk you're willing to take, but you're not willing to take the risk to tell me what's going on." So she does have a point. And Sam is a little worried because any time they fought before, anytime things weren't maybe going the way they wished that they were, um, even when they had fight, Helen would always say, um, "This isn't over," meaning their marriage or what have you. She was always willing to kind of fight for them, even as those two were fighting. And this time she didn't say that. So, Twitch is really worried. But again, I think if you asked Twitch, he would say he'd be willing to lose his wife to, a divorce and lose his family or what have you, rather than have her condemned for all time and attached to Billy Kincaid, right? Like that's how much he loves her, that he's willing to take this risk. So meanwhile, at the Fitzgerald household, Wanda's making some cookies when she hears a big crash. Calls out Cyan's name a couple times. She doesn't respond. She goes running into her bedroom, and Cyan has draped herself in the flag that covered Al Simmons' casket when he was buried. Obviously, we know Cyan has a connection to Al Simmons, but Wanda doesn't know about that. And so it's pretty interesting. She's like, "What are you doing with that flag?" It belonged to somebody very, very special. And she says, "The sad man is afraid, mommy. The sad man, he's scared for us. He's afraid." And Wanda's like, "Sad man, what's going on?" She again doesn't know that Al is back, doesn't know that Al and Spawn are one and the same. But little clues like this, you think enough of them pile up, she might be able to start putting together. I guess we'll have to wait and wait and see. So once Sam's family leaves, Twitch's family leaves, him and Sam find themselves at the Keystone Tavern, sort of reminiscing Twitch is telling Sam, yeah, she got on a plane to Florida. They're going to go stay with her mom. She's not too happy. I hate keeping things from her, but I didn't really have a choice. Um, and Sam is trying to comfort Twitch. Hey, she'll get over it. She's a good woman. There's not much we can do now except wait for Kincaid to make his move. Again, that title, waiting, right? Twitch is waiting. Uh, Sam is waiting. Spawn is waiting. Um, and so as a way to sort of pass the time as they're waiting, they start talking about kind of their old days on the force. I mean, they are in a cop bar. And Sam's telling stories, and they're kind of laughing about crazy things that happened to them on the job and over the years and what have you. And as they're doing that, this young cop comes up, Rafferty by name, and he says, I don't mean to disturb you guys, but I was told to deliver this to you. Enjoy your evening. I'm heading out. And as Twitch opens it, Sam's like, oh, is that the lab results we were waiting for? I mean, maybe there's other cases. I don't really know what lab results it might have been, but that's not at all what it is. In fact, it's a note from Billy Kincaid that says things to do tomorrow. And we've got Wanda, Terry, Little Cyan, Mrs. Twitch, Old Blind Bitch, which refers to Granny Blake, and then the Twitch Brats, which is Twitch's kids, right? And they're all X'd out. They're all marked for death, I guess you would say. So these guys immediately jump up. They realize, hey, that cop must be possessed by Kincaid. That's why he, delivered this to us. And so they go running out after him. It's too late. He's disappeared. But they saw his badge name, right? Yeah, Rafferty. So Sam's like, all right, I'm going to call Wanda and Terry and tell them to get somewhere safe. And then I'll run a check on this Officer Rafferty and, see what part of the city he should be in. And Twitch is going to go tell Spawn what happened so they can get their plan in motion. But before he can even reach out, somehow Cagliostro already knows that things are in motion. And he says, it's almost time, Spawn. Are you ready? And we don't see a response from Spawn, but we do see that his hand is glowing. His eyes are glowing. It ends on this little bit of a cliffhanger here. And we'll see what Spawn's plan is to stop Billy Kincaid, if it's successful or not. What is the plan? Is he going to succeed? A lot of questions to be answered. Again, bit of a setup issue. I suppose when we talk about Sam and Twitch waiting and Spawn waiting and Cagliostro waiting, we can sort of add ourselves to that as well, right? The storyline's been going on for quite some time. It's been really interesting. It's been really fast paced. It's given a chance for Twitch to have a lot of characterization. So I don't mind the tension. I don't mind the buildup. I don't mind the waiting. And as I say that, I do realize that when I was reading these, it was for the first time, it was super late at night. The first time I was reading them, and it was a situation where I was like, okay, I'm going to read just one more. And I kept just reading one more because I didn't want to wait. Because yeah, these are some really great issues. So again, love the characterization of Sam and Twitch, especially Twitch. He's really fleshed out and really a bond is strengthening between him and Spawn. But also, Sam and Twitch and they're, they're like brothers. They're so close and they've shared so much over the years. So I find that to be really interesting as well. This whole idea of more breadcrumbs for Wanda to try to put two and two together and realize that Al Simmons and Spawn are one and the same and that he's back, and how will that affect her relationship with Terry? Has Twitch lost his family? Like, again, there's just a lot of questions here. What's going to happen with Silbert? Is he going to, believe and accept the answer Sam has given him, or not? So again, a lot of setup, a lot of great moments, not least of which is who's this Stormer guy? Why does he have it out for Jason Wynn? What's going to happen to Wynn when he gets picked up? So again, there's a lot of setup in this issue, and yeah, it's fantastic. So great cover as well. Like I mentioned, it's a bit of a pinup type cover, but I do like the call out to people being possessed, for lack of a better way to put it, with that pentagram there from Capullo. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate you all subscribing on YouTube if you haven't already. Getting real close to 500 subscribers. So even if you're listening to the audio only, you always listen to the audio. I would really love it if you could go over to YouTube, do search for the Comic Source and subscribe. It would really help me out. Conversely, if you check us out on YouTube all the time and you're curious about the other audio only Comic Source content, before we went to putting everything on YouTube, there's over 2,000 episodes that you can go back and listen to and enjoy. Interviews, reviews of old books, convention coverage, all that sort of stuff. Just do a search for the Comic Source from your favorite podcasting app or favorite podcasting platform, and you'll find us there. But as I said, starting this year, everything goes up on YouTube as well. So whichever way you want to listen, I will still continue to put out everything on the audio feed as well. So yeah, whatever your preference is, we just appreciate the support, and we thank you all for joining us as always, and we will talk to you next time.